The Professors is brought to you by Blackborder.com. On the site shop, you'll find some of the lowest prices on Worldwide booster boxes and the oft too expensive singles, as well as over a dozen of the top content producers, if I do say so myself, on the Magic Net. So go check out Blackborder.com today.
I'm a sailor pain, and I lost my leg. Climbing up the top sails, I lost my leg.
Hello everybody and welcome to yet another episode of The Professors. This week we've got Grand Prix Oakland behind us and Pro Tour San Diego ahead. So we'll take a look at the top list from the Grand Prix and view our potential big sellers and big sweepers for this weekend's Pro Tour. So let's draw. I know I'll always remember the day I found out MagicTheGathering.com was a website, about 9 years ago. Back then there was some forums, many sites in their infancy, and some ways to view the newest spoilers via your dial-up connection. But while most sites were in their infancy, one was already edging towards the end of its prophetic life, the Magic Dojo. Also known as where, most notably, Mike Flores got his start, the dojo has some of the most in-depth tournament reports and coverage, theory development, and deck design on the Magic Net. Sure, it was never fancy in delivery, polished, or massive in its content, but the dojo made its writers and readers into the best who could gauge the top decks, which were then changing week by week. Roughly 10 years later, many major Magic sites are dueling for pros to write for their sites, fancy deck tool features, and of course, sweet logo things. But, I mean really, there's no one particular site that posts consistent results at, say, every tournament. In all seriousness, Blackborder.com ranks high in recent months of sites, with players at the top tables, and while not everyone in these pictures wearing a Channel Fireball t-shirt writes for the site, Channel Fireball has had consistent top table players. In the case of Oakland, this is likely because of players like Matt Nass's ability to gauge what the locals are playing, and tweak an effective standard deck that they, say, won a 5K with to rock the tournament scene. While Nass was criticized throughout the tournament for incorrect playing, his techie list and record of 18-2 throughout the tournament cannot go unnoticed. Elves have had multiple interpretations since Pro Tour Berlin, when Luis Scott Vargas first made it a Tier 1 deck. It's been mono-green, splashed red for Bloodbraid Elf, and recently played black for Thoughtseize to take care of the Thefts deck. However, Matt Nass had a relatively different take and splashed white for a relatively new card, Ranger of Eos. While the rest of the notable Channel Fireball team, excluding the top 4 player Conley Woods, rocked the shiny new Thefts deck, Nass was tweaking the Morningtide Extended Elves list, exchanging Elvish Champions for Elvish Archdruids, the old fetch lands for the new ones, and whatever it could find for the sideboarded Ghost Quarters. Matt clearly understood that even with everyone at the top tables packing 4 to 8 hate cards for Elves, it was not enough. Especially when Loaming Shaman, Gadok Teeg, Barented Forge Tender, and Viridian Shamans all fight against this hypothetically great tech. But now that Elves will show its resurgence, and possibly even prove to be the new best deck, if not the second or third most played next to Thefts and Zoo, what can you play? My answer for Extended, as a deck that you can probably put together for under $100, and yet what still seems to be the underdog, even the laughingstock of this tournament, is Peter Brozik's Barely Boros deck. Extended Edition. See, Brozik has had ungodly success ranked by this single deck across Standard, Extended, Draft, and Legacy. At that point, it's safe to say that Brozik has full mastery of these cards, and yet there's no denying his success into the top 8, being stopped only by the winner in a 2-1 fight. And yet it appears 90% of the player base I hear hates this deck, whether it be because more than 50 of the 75 cards are from Standard, or plays 3 too many English cards with Ublas. The deck just appears as an outcast. Nonetheless, the situational abuse of having 3 or 4 lands enter the battlefield in one turn, or even doming your opponent for 20 happened often to Brozik, if you saw the coverage, as early as turn 4. The fact that almost all the spells in the deck deal damage is so ridiculous. There are a lot of lands in the deck for such a low curve in Extended, but again, the point of the deck is landfall. Also, just a reminder that having a Flagstones of Trocaire, and then on a latter turn playing a Ghost Quarter, which you then pop to destroy your Flagstones of Trocaire to cash in for a mountain off the Ghost Quarter's downside, you can then get a Plains off the destroyed Flagstones land. This small play has the potential to make your plated GOP to 7/7 First Striker, or a Step Links a 6/7 in instant speed. And an additional white mana to your pool, and fix on board for your mana base. A third Extended deck that's almost entirely new offers an alternative to Hypergenesis. Travis Wu's 61-card Living End deck apparently had good game versus the popular Thefts deck, but also could fight against Domain Zoo, Elves except when Matt Nass was playing it, and even Baneslayer. Yes, Jungle Weaver can effectively block it. The idea behind this deck is to cycle your early cards until you get to a Demonic Dread or Violent Outburst. You then cascade into a Living End, wrathing your opponent's board and bringing in 4 or 5 of your cycled creatures. However, in my personal experience, and I realize how ridiculous this sounds, but even with the 24 cyclers in the deck, I find myself unable to make effective use of my Cascade spell until turn 5 or 6. Just based on how much mana it costs you to cycle, even at the price of 1 mana or 2 life, digging up the spell necessary will take 2 to 4 turns, but even then your force ends up shakily assembled, and you find yourself dumping another cycler or 2. But by turn 3, Elves can have you overrun and needing to spend Wraths unnecessarily, while the Barely Boros deck can simply dome you without any creatures ever touching the board. Also, do you know how bad the deck is against Thought Hemorrhage naming Living End or Dredge after turn 2? I mean, there's no denying that Travis found a way out of this situation, but I'm just not sure exactly what that was. Perhaps we'll find out come PTQ season. But speaking of the PTQ season, what should you play? My answer remains my deck choice after day 2 of the Grand Prix. The answer, after 3 days of extreme testing and a notable 10-2 record versus records of other decks with under a 50% winning rate, is Peter Brozik's Barely Boros deck. The reason you won't be able to rock Elves is because of the major precautions you can expect to be taken by others to fight these teams of Elves. Even if they come out of the gates as early as turn 3. Pyroclasm, Volcanic Fallout, Earthquake, Damnation, Wrath of God, Day of Judgment, Chain Reaction, and Cryptic Command are all reasonable and relatively recently printed and therefore more accessible answers to basically the deck. However, what if you play black instead of white in the deck for Thoughtseize or Duress? The answer appears that it isn't enough. Sure, you pick 1 card out of their hand before you attempt to run all of your creatures out for the win, but A, none of your creatures have haste, and 2, anyone that remotely expects Elves and or isn't an idiot will pack more than 4 sideboard and maybe even more than 4 main deck answers to this deck. As a result, I not only expect Boros to show up more as a cheap deck, but just because it's a good one. You can expect that I'll be rocking the deck in at least 2 of the area's next 6 PTQs, and you should too. So, lots of cards in Worldwake have had a ridiculous effect on Standard, right? Yeah, well I mean there was that, the blue card, and of course Om Nom Nom. Then there was that vampire that did something, and of course Treasure Hunt getting you 1.75 cards, and Halimar Depths getting you even more. Then there was that, blue card again. Then there was Tectonic Edge, a less expected card but nonetheless making decks honest and forcing some to play Anathemancer again in order to fight the more than 4 land war. Then there was that, the blue card. Hell, there were a lot of successful cards from the set, like the, well, Skitter of Lizards was pretty good, right? In all seriousness, 1 card has majorly warped Standard, Jace. He's warped the deck so much that the decks you are playing are either built for the purpose of playing Jace the Mind Sculptor, Tectonic Edge, or Bloodbraid Elf. Jund has degenerated into a deck that needs extra mana sources and explorers to not be crippled by the Jace deck. The Jace deck doesn't effectively do anything until turn 3, but then start kicking you in the balls with Tectonic Edges, ridiculous treasure hunts that dig up 5 cards, and they block your 1 creature with their Calcite Snapper. That said, even if the blue decks do so little, they are diversified. Obviously, blue doesn't offer enough answers in its color alone. Calcite Snapper and Sphinx of Jor-El are nice and all, but getting that much card advantage to actually win with them is near impossible. As a result, you can often make a deck that works with these cards as a base, and then add a color or colors of your choice. On the control side, white offers Baneslayer and Path to Exile. Black offers Abyssal Persecutor, Doomblade, and selective discard like Duress. Red offers Double Negative and Burn. Green offers the Lotus Cobra and the Fatties. Black-red offers Blightning. Red-green offers Bloodbraid Elf, etc. Question is, how many alternative decks, aside from Jund and Jace the Mind Sculptor deck, remain in the format? My answer is that you can expect Mono-Black Vampires to stick around, Mono-Red to show up, White Weenie to bring the beats, Barely Boros and Boros to offer consistent burn, Eldrazi Green with the help of Jiraga Warcaller, Big Mana with Lotus Cobra, Comet Storm, and Friends, and apparently a Blue Allies deck because, well, it would appear that the country of Japan has bought up nearly every Jwar shapeshifter. What comes out on top? Well, whether blue mind-controlled Godzilla or red threatens for the win, we'll see in a few days. So until next time, this is Anthony Palmerio, on behalf of the Professors. We're tapped out for now, but we'll untap soon.